Good morning, Alan, and great to
Hi,
see you again.
Siggy.
Great to see you
Yes, you
again.
too.
And
Yeah,
welcome to episode 6. Can you believe it? This is 12
I
weeks of
cannot.
12 weeks of doing these things,
Yeah,
and thank you very much for doing this for me. And I I'm glad that this theme has gone. I started really developing around the education of what coaching actually is and what the
mm,
process is, and you know we both know how important that is, and we're going to discuss that a little bit in terms of what we see going on in the coaching world and what people's perceptions are of that. So in terms, and you came up with this title. It's a great one. So now that I've got a coach, what happens now? So I'll
yes.
let you start off with your input, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, so I think that from our recording number 5, we established some of the criteria that you need to use to be able uh, to take a coach on. And so I think that we don't need to go back into that, but what are we assuming today is that you found somebody who met that criteria as if you're taking on a coach, and that you're going to then move into the space where you actually start utilizing that coach's services. So there are various things that we can look at in terms of, so, how does that process start to unfold? And obviously, I think the first thing that we need to probably take into consideration is that you have an essential reason, that a client has an essential reason for taking on the coach. So that becomes the starting point. So if we have to have a look at it as, you know, my current reality, which we talk a lot about, is A, and I actually want to get to B, which is going to be the outcomes that I am going to be seeking with the facilitation of this coaching process with my coach.
Mm.
So so that seems to be the beginning and the end of the coaching journey. And there are a whole lot of elements that basically fit into that process. So I think that's the first thing that we need to think about. What do you what say you?
Yeah, I say, uh, okay, yeah. No, I like to, I like to put it this way. And it's something I heard from somewhere else, but what needs to be true at the end of the coaching process that's not true right now, you know,
Mm,
and that's really the starting point. And, most of what we do is around a 12 to 14 session program,
mm, yeah,
that you set, you start really off with I like starting off with sort of like a bigger picture, a little bit more around uh, what the legacy elements of a person needs to be. What is their concept of the life they want to build? They
yes,
What is the sort of, if they 5, 10, 20 years from now, what life do they want? And sometimes that,
yeah,
that question has a bit of a connotation, because very often that's an interview question. So, where do you see
mm,
yourself 5 years from now? But this is more of a holistic question. So what impact do you want to have over your family and all those kind of things? I like starting that and creating a bit of self-awareness around that. And then
yes,
I also then I read that. That's when, after that, when I've gotten people to reflect a little bit on that, and after a little period of time, that's when we do the neuroscience based goal setting exercise.
yes,
And
exactly.
I find that, because you're connected to certain things in that goal setting exercise, you take it's, of course, the 4 steps: the mining, refining, defining, and shining.
Yeah,
uh, where you're going through a process of digging out everything that's in a person's life, and adding things that that person might want to have in their life. You refining it to the three areas that's going to make it the most significant difference to them, in the next 3 to 6 months, 3 months preferably. You're defining what that looks like. So by
mm,
defining, I mean creating a dynamic goal that's personalized for somebody. And I like using the example of if somebody wants to uh, write a blog or launch a
yeah,
website or anything like that. You know, it's quite a clear goal. I want to start writing my blog,
yes,
or I want to launch a website, or
yes,
I want to do something specific. And I make sure that people add to that in the sense of what elements would make you proud of that, you know. So anybody can launch a website in 3 months time. It's quite easy. You can go to the internet, you can do the kind of things, but what is something that's going to make you proud? And what is something that you know, I always do the in-laws or the mother and father or the best friend test, you know. What is going to make what is it going to be, so what is going to look like when you're proud enough to show the people that matter most around you, that you've done this. And you know, that sort of dynamic, and then there's the shining, the make it your own, and your own definition to it, so that when you say that line in your head, it means that it's automatically connected to that dynamic goal. Those what I find with most of my coachees, those three areas are usually very much a work related one, a very focused. I want to move this element of my business, or this element of my career, or this element of my leadership from here to here. Then that's usually supported by a business or a personal growth, a project that I myself personally, I want to become. This is where I'm lacking right now. This is where I want to be. You know, whether that's a personal growth, that's usually a personal growth project. And then there's I always make sure that there's a life element to it as well. So something in life that would bring balance to the other two. Because you know, we can't, you know, it would be wrong for me as a coach to coach somebody in a singular element of their lives if they don't have the balance of life and work, because that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve a better life for a person. We're not trying to achieve just purely a better business, a better career or anything. We're trying to achieve a better life for a person. So that's sort of a starting point for me. And what comes up for you if you reflect on that?
Yes, I think that interestingly enough, I think the one thing that comes up for me is the hardy annual of I would like to lose 20 kilograms and I would like to be more fit. And so, you know, in my experience as a coach, that one never seems to go away. So I think that it's almost, you need to accept that people see that as part of the, you know, the wellness component of their life. And there are other things, obviously, but that seems to dominate a lot of the time. So, yes, what I'm hearing you say, CD, is that we spoke about what a coach ought to offer us as clients. And that would be a solid starting point. So you've articulated that quite well in terms of a process that they could be using. Or and you know, it doesn't have to be the one that you're talking about. There are many out there. You know, there's the Wheel of Life. There is we were talking about the Healthy Mind Platter. And, you know, I mean, there just is a myriad of this sort of stuff. What we want to avoid, though, is that it is less expansive. So in other words, I would not be comfortable with a coach who is basically kind of restricting you down to the first few thoughts that come into your mind about what you would like to achieve. And I talk from experience because I do a lot of assessments on coaches. And basically, I have found the more expansive that the coach is, the more likely you, as the client, are going to come up with something that you never thought of. Now, I have, you know, in these coaching, depending on the efficacy of the coach that I'm working with, during the assessment, I have come up personally with things that have just jumped into my space. And this has got to do with the neuroscience approach to coaching, because in recognizing that these things are in our memories, they kind of hidden there, and by asking the right kind of questions, as you expand this thing, something comes forth. And that is what I think every client should really expect from their coach, that they are going to be able to do that in the beginning before they continue with the process.
And sort of like, you know, and just to reflect on that, you know, that I wanted to lose 20 kilogram line. It's almost in that context. It's almost taking that and expanding it and sort of getting deeper, because there's a reason, there's an underlying reason why that's a problem, right? So we need to fix all those little things, and we need to fix all those things to make sure that 20-kilogram problem disappears for the rest of your life, right? And that's what you ultimately need to do. And I like what you said about something that pops up that you never thought that you needed to work on, and that's happened with me a few times, and we had a conversation just before this where I downloaded a whole bunch of stuff, and that was just because that was really because you quietened down, you slowed down, you silenced all your day-to-day tick box thoughts, or your limiting beliefs and everything like that. You're actually just going through a process of clear thinking. And through that clear thinking, you because it's like you say, it's sitting in your subconscious, it's sitting in your memory. It's something that you might have thought about at some point in your life, or even when you were a little kid. Now, this is really what I want to do with my life. But then life happens, and all these things come in the way, and so on. And then that if a good coach would then take you through that goal setting exercise and reignite and re-energize and sort of connect with what you really want to do, and those take different forms, and those have different things. Now once we've done that and people are engaged, and we check a lot on how people feel about their goals and how people are connected with them on an emotional level, because if you don't feel your goal, you've not connected with it on an emotional level, how are you going to reach it? That's I always use the workplace examples, your KPIs and so on. You're almost, the only reason why you want to reach those is almost like a salary based or a bonus based reason, and it's not really an emotional based reason. It's just almost like a financial reward. So very, the difference here is it will lead to great things, but you want to create the emotional feeling, and you want to create the emotional connection to it. Now, once you've got that emotional connection, what happens then?
Exactly. So I think that's a very good point. And as we know, that our emotions just drive about everything. So unless you have got that, you're not on a winning streak. So I mean, that has to happen, because and that is the reason why coaches ought to check in with their clients regularly about how they're feeling about these things, because it can change from week to week, day to day, and depending on the circumstances, that is going to always be a present element that is going to influence the coaching journey. One of the things I want to do, because it occurred to me as we were talking about this, the sort of 3 goals, or that more sort of, what can I say, organized approach to on a medium to long term outcome that you're looking for when you take on a client. The other thing that I think we need to recognize is there may be some more immediate needs. So for a lot of people who have selected a coach, may not want to, they may not be in a situation where they can focus on these, these areas that that are important to them right now, because they are more focused on something that is going on in their space, which they need some assistance with. So I think we need to differentiate that slightly in that there may be shorter coaching conversations focused on a dilemma or, an opportunity that somebody is pondering. And therefore a coach can play an amazingly important role in working with that space with a client. And therefore, I think what it says to me that as a coach, and part of the criteria is the flexibility of the coach to deal with a myriad of different circumstances when it comes to the client, and understanding from the client's point of view, what is the most important thing for them.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're actually coaching the person, there's that line, coaching the person and not the problem. If you remain too focused on the process, there's certain process that we follow to get to certain conclusions. But if you too focused on what you feel is a structure, and you're not listening to the person that's sitting in front of you, but about what they're talking about, you are missing opportunities. You're not giving the person you're basically giving the person the value that they could get from a coach. And
Yeah.
you know that, because from the goal setting, you go into basically the strategies and the milestones. So the structure on how you're going to reach those things, and at this stage it's still very much sort of almost process driven, and getting to that milestone and strategies phase. You're basically setting up, and the a good example for me is writing a book. So your goal is almost your goal is the title, and the chapters are the milestones that you have to reach. The strategies are the structures of the what you're putting down, and the actions is the actual words that you're putting down, right? So
Yeah.
that's sort of your next step that you go into, and that's where the rubber sort of starts hitting the road. So because what you're making, you're pulling back from a distance what they'd like to reach and what they'd like to achieve, and you basically bringing them back to, okay, so what are we going to do now to make
Yes.
that happen? What's the first thing? So usually that works in the sense of understanding your current reality of where you are right now, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
understanding where you would like to be, and exactly making that 100% clear. Looking at your options in terms of how you get there, and
Yeah.
what do you need to do, choosing your options, implementing those options, and going back into making sure that you are on the right road. Now, sounds very simple, right? And it sounds very Six Sigma project management kind
Yeah.
of structured. But the difference is that I find as you go along, you then coming back to underlying things, and sort of you're coming back to what has stopped that person from achieving some of those things. And
Yes.
I find that you spend quite a lot of space in creating that reality and creating that picture, and that, so understanding where people are and understanding where they need to be. There's quite a lot of work that is done, unless it's a very processed one, but there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done there. What do you find?
Yeah, I think that it is exactly as you say it is, but there are some important things that need to be recognized. The one that I want to just focus on is what you've just said, and that has got to do with, it's divided into transactional processes and transformational processes. So the opportunity to work at a deeper level is always there. And so, but you have to attend to the transactional process in order to get there. And so a lot of coaches, I find, just remain in that space. It's a transaction. It's, let's talk, get some actions, you go away and do that. Never really enter into the area of, so let's dig deeper and let's try and understand why you are in the situation in the first place. So it's a good coach. Now that we're talking about, taking our criteria into the actual experience, ought to be doing that. The other thing that I thought is important to mention here is that now that the question was that we're discussing is, so what now? And it would not be prudent of me not to say that it's a lot of hard work. The client needs to understand that without the work, nothing will happen. So if you're going to take a coach on, you have to be prepared to walk that journey and put some extra effort into it. And really, that is probably the one thing that just what caves in a coaching situation, is that it fizzles out simply because the client is not doing what they ought to do.
Yeah, and it's quite simple, right? And I it's something that popped up for me, but in that it's quite simple. You're still accountable for your own life, and you're still responsible for you're still responsible for your own success. You're just having somebody that works with you to work on your thinking, your process, and and achieving those things. So you're not up, and that's what I talk to a lot of coaches, and they sort of say that, in the first conversation with the coachee or client, They get a lot of
Yeah.
now. Okay, so you tell me what to do now,
Yeah.
and it's almost like
Exactly.
that's and it, I want to bring it back to positive psychology, and that
Mm,
reinforcement and the way you think and the neuroscience based, um,
mm,
um, your way of how this happens. You know, that work that you do um, creates, because I mean we're working on the solution, we're working on solutions, we're working on the vision, we're working on
yeah.
the actions to get there,
Yeah.
and doing that work, and taking that responsibility and having the discipline, actually that's what starts creating that new thinking and the new neuroscience
Yeah.
and the new habits, and in this process of the structure and all those things, if you build the right amount of trust with your, and this is where you mentioned the transactional coaches, where it's almost like just a superficial, they're not digging deeper
Yeah.
into to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
deeper things. You build a deeper level of trust with that coach, and it takes, usually takes about a month or so to get there. Some people trust you fully from the beginning. Some people take a little bit of time to get a little bit deeper and start slowly opening up a little bit more in each session, and then creating the opportunity to really jump into the deeper leading. So and using one of my favorite lines, there's no failure, there's only feedback. And having a coach
Yes.
sit in front of you and like you said, so one of the processes we go to in a discerning way, and not in a judgmental way, in a discerning way, is to in these setting up these actions for every week or for every period of time. If somebody hasn't completed those, you're not sitting across from somebody and criticizing them for it. You're digging deeper as to why it didn't happen, and what
Yeah.
is the learning and what is the understanding, and what and it's usually through those conversations and those questions where
With a real change.
where the
Yeah.
real change happens, because it's like,
Yeah.
now I didn't do it because
Yeah.
I felt this way, I
Yeah.
feared this, I I got scared of it. I ran
Yes.
away from it. I took off my responsibility. So why did you do that? Because no apparent reason. Usually that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's usually in those conversations where you get to a point where people start understanding their thinking a little bit deeper. And
Yes.
that's why I think that's for me the tipping point of taking stuff on your own. I'm not, people can be successful by themselves. There's no doubt about it. There's several examples of it. But if you want to speed up that process, and if you want to create the mindset of success and that positive intelligence, and silence those judges and those limiting beliefs from your childhood and the way you've grown up and your
Put it on
your
your
view on money and
exactly.
all that,
Yeah.
and all those things that like I have to stay in the societal concept of success. If silencing all those things only happens if you really consistently thinking about it, reflecting on it, working towards it, and you silence those things. They never go away because they're all hardwired. But you silence those things by creating those habits, creating that clear thinking, creating new wiring that actually makes it better. And
Yeah.
that is the power of coaching. Really, is that makes it faster, stronger.
Yeah.
I almost um, there's a song like that, but anyway, that just popped up in my head.
It sounded like answer.
Yeah. Faster, Daft Punk. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's really what happens, and that's the power of coaching for me and everything. It's not always you achieve results, and it's almost like the goal becomes almost secondary, because the person that person became while achieving that goal is stronger
Yeah.
than
Yes.
just achieving the goal itself. You know,
Yeah.
because they think differently, they have different habits, and they do. And what I always try to reach with my clients after each element of my coaching, of each process, is a continuation of that relationship and a continuation of
Yes.
that deeper thinking, and having people understand that it's fine to anything is achievable if you do it in the right structure and everything, but it just makes it
Right.
you just take yourself out of a situation where you're part of that day-to-day life and everything, and that noise that goes on around you all the time, those distractions, where you just discipline yourself to work on what is important, rather than what isn't urgent, right? So that's that's sort of a long kind of way to put the benefit. But what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, look, I think that we're probably coming to the end of our call today, but yeah, I would say that there's so much value in what we've just discussed. I hope that people will find that useful, and I do think that the acid test is always going to be your ability to introspectively look into what's going on, rather than just superficially going through an exercise. And, I'll just end off with this before I hand over to you, CD. In those assessments that I did, one of the things that came up for me was that through the questioning process, I realized that I did not have enough respect for myself over a particular issue that I was actually dealing with. And it was a health-related issue. And that the magnitude of that little discovery from me made a huge difference. It changed, all of a sudden, everything that I'd been thinking and talking about just disappeared, no longer existed. Because now I realized actually what was the real issue here. Once I could just could just understand that and start to work on that. And by the way, that became very multi-layered for me as well. But I felt almost a sense of relief that I'd actually been able to discover that. And I think that's what the offering is, what the Coach B should be seeking, because we're talking about what now? Seeking the deepest and the most significant thing that you can discover out of the experience.
Yeah. And I agree with you, because it's not you're project managing somebody's brain and somebody's thoughts. You're not necessarily project managing their lives. They do that themselves, but it's just how they approach it, how they see themselves in the process, and what comes up, and what comes up if you really if you're really thinking about it, and the ways that we do it is the tools that we use at the start of every session to make sure that the people are fully engaged in the session. The way that you check in them every time about where they feel and how they feel about their goals, and what the connection is with them right now. Sometimes there is something that pops up immediately that you can you then dive into a coaching process with, because very often in that feeling, something pops up that's that is very clearly something that's holding this person back, that you need to address. The way you then set specific, very clear actions, and with deadlines and everything for that person to do, whether it is a transactional thing or whether it's an emotional awareness thing, using things like the healthy mind platter, the business wheel of balance, the growth mindset exercise, the values exercise, all these different things that we have as tools that are neuroscience based. All these things work together quite brilliantly, and like I say, in that process, and just to close off, the what I enjoy the most and what I see the most is with the people that are the most engaged with their own development, that will really want to shift their lives in a positive way. They shine. At the end of the process, it's really they really become that different person that they envisioned, and that's connected to their goal, but it's also connected to that clear thinking of who they want to be, and what kind of person they want to be, and what kind of legacy they want to leave behind. So for anybody watching this, if you want to talk about it a little bit more, if you want to see that work on that legacy of yours, reach out to us. But it's a collection of positive psychology, neuroscience based thought processes that get you out of that programmed brain of yours into a space that's just your own, nobody else's. nobody, there's nobody else in that space. There's a coach that's sitting there reflecting to you what you're thinking, but it's just purely your own. So if you invest in a personal trainer, or if you invest in a university degree, or you invest in a course, or all these kind of things, why not invest in somebody that's gonna help you just shift your mind. And that's essentially, if because it's very hard to explain to people what coaching is, and that's exactly what it is. It's shifting your mind into the place that you want to. You're making in your mind true what wasn't true before.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So thank you, Allan. That was a great
Thank
chat.
you. I think that there was some really very interesting and valuable points that came through that, CD. Thank you.
And have a great weekend, and I'll chat to you soon.
Yes. Okay. Excellent. Thanks, CD. Cheers.